This video is brought to you by the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team. Go to patreon.com/discgolfnerd. Hello, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new disc golf die tutorial, this time for a spinning shaving cream swirl die. This is the first one I ever did on this Kraken, and I have a particular viewer who's really interested in learning this technique, so I put this die tutorial together basically as a viewer request. I like making these type of videos, you guys like to watch them, and this is another interesting technique that you can learn to customize your discs. We're going to be using a basic old Sanyo record player that I got for free. I forget where I even found it. And my preferred method for getting the dye onto the shaving cream is to sprinkle it on using these kind of homemade kind of spice salt and pepper shakers that I'm going to make out of a condiment cup with the powdered dye in there. And I'm also going to just cover it up with some saran wrap, plastic wrap. I'm going to use a rubber band to hold that onto the rim. And then I'm going to use a wooden skewer to poke small holes in it that will simulate a salt shaker, essentially. If you have a salt shaker that you can use for this, or if you're looking to just go purchase the stuff that you need for this, of course, I would probably recommend you just do that, but this is an alternate way that you can do it, and a way that I've used for other types of shaving cream dyes as well. The dye I'm using in this video is iDye Poly. I have orange, and I have the dark kind of blood red as well. Don't leave a comment asking me which dye I'm using. I'm using iDye Poly. Really strong colors. I only went with 2 different colors here to try to keep it simple, but you can do rainbow, you can do whatever you want. Just keep in mind the colors might blend together, so you want to make sure that you're not going to be creating browns and stuff. Look into the basic color wheel before you tackle this kind of stuff. I'm going to be using a yellow disc, so I'm using orange and red dye only. Once again, you can see I'm poking a couple little holes here, kind of towards the edge, so that I can sprinkle that dye out onto the shaving cream. Now, you can see I have a cork trivet on top of my record player, and that is just to get around the fact that that post is in the middle from where you mount a record. So it's a really great way of doing that for spin dies and all these type of techniques that you want to use a record player for. It's a lot easier than trying to remove that post. Trust me, that thing is tough. I'm using an aluminum cake pan, the same ones I use for my glue dies. I also always have some of these cheap rubber spatulas that are very handy for these projects. And right now you can see I'm trying to center the trivet onto this pan so that I can keep the whole thing spinning in the spot that I want. And once I get it mostly centered, I'm going to use some basic blue tape to hold it in place. Blue tape is one of my favorite things for these type of projects. It just works super well, and it's great for any time you need to hold something but you don't want to leave a sticky residue. It's just really excellent. I use blue tape all the time for all kinds of different projects around the house, and it's perfect for this. Just going to use 3 pieces here just to kind of hold this thing together. And then once I press that cork trivet down onto the post, it'll help keep the entire thing stable and in place. So that's going to be nice, because obviously as this thing's spinning, it could easily shift out of position. You're going to press the disc down in there. I highly recommend you try to figure out a way to connect your pan to your spinning mechanism, which again in this case is a record player. Here I'm trying to just get an idea of how centered it really is, and one of the ways I like to do that, as you see, is I'm spinning it here, and I'll use the actual arm of the record player, hold it towards the edge, and then look for how much space is in between it. If the amount of distance between that bar and the pan is fluctuating, you know it's off center. So you're trying to get it so there is a very consistent distance in between the arm and the pan. So, speeding it up here, I'm using the rest of these 2 cans of shaving cream, probably not as much as I needed. I wanted to have some more, but this is what I had, so I'm making it work. And I'm going to take a crack at trying to kind of get this into shape with the spatula, and it's really not going to go very well. This technique is not something that I'm particularly well versed in. I've only really tried this a few different times, but it is something that I figured I know how to do well enough to show you guys the basics. As always with my dies, you know, I just want to show you guys the basics and show you how I do it and the stuff that you need, and then you can take it from there and do whatever you want to do and whatever you're inspired to do from there. Develop your own technique, figure it out. That's part of the fun. So after I messed around with the spatula, got it kind of centered, I switched to this plastic ruler, and this is the way to go for sure. This is the first attempt with the ruler, and you can see it comes out about as good as I can expect here. Nice kind of cone shape is what I'm looking for. But since this is a tutorial and I want to be able to prove that I can produce this result multiple times, I'm going to scrape it down in here, mess around with it, kind of flatten it out, and try it again to see if I can kind of practice the technique a little bit, you know, and show you guys that I do know how to do this. It wasn't just a fluke. And again, I'm trying to make sure that I know what the hell I'm doing here before I'm showing you guys what to do. So there again, got a pretty decent cone there, but a little bit of a weird peak that I'm going to try to clean up with the spatula in just a moment. Sorry if this is making you dizzy here. It is what it is. Wait, I'm putting shaving cream back in here. Oh, that's right. I'm going to take another crack at this actually to try to get this even better. So you might notice that as I scoop down in there, I'm getting some of the shaving cream from the side of this mound, and I'm trying to kind of pile it up towards the top to try to get it as tall as I can get it in this pan. So now I'm helping the record player by spinning it manually here because of the resistance of that shaving cream and the ruler being pressed down into it. And once again, still not quite as good as the first pass, but this should be good enough. And now I'm going to very carefully try to put a little bit of a finishing touch on this with the spatula. I'm going to try to get like a little bit of a kind of a corkscrew swirl happening here as well, and make sure I have a decent point on this thing to be able to go forward with. So there we go. That's about as good as it's going to get. You can see it's got a little bit of a curl to it, kind of like a screw, and that's it. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. And here I come in with the dye. I'm going to do a really simple kind of sprinkle straight across in a line, and then I'm going to go across that with the other color, and then I'm going to do that again. And again, you can make this so that the colors are directly on top of each other and they connected lines so that there's no negative space on the disc, but I'm trying to leave some of the actual disc to come through on the underside. So here you go, I'm doing a little X pattern with the first color. I forget which one is which here, but it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to do the same thing through those other, through the middle of those sections that I just created with the other color. So I'm pretty sure that's the red going on here. You can be a little bit more generous with the sprinkling on this than you would do with like a typical mound shaving cream dye, where you do the same kind of process but without the spin, and you just press it straight down in, and you end up with that kind of like burst effect that you might see. There was a very popular shaving cream design for dyes years ago. The disc we're using here is a Lone Star Mad Cat, so thank you very much to Lone Star for sending me these to test and review. I was able to grab one of these out of the stack and use it for this video as well. So I think I wanted a little bit more dye on here, so I'm going to stop and try to fill in a couple more gaps. And if you're looking for examples of people who do this technique better than this and are a little bit more well versed in it, you might want to check out a couple different pages on Instagram, Drip Dye Discs, and also my buddy Elliot DeLong from DeLong Dyes. He does a really good job of this. He does a lot of different colors and rainbow patterns and all that kind of stuff. This is a much more basic thing, that basic technique that I'm showing off here in this video. And I'm going to let this thing spin for a little while. There are all kinds of different ways that you can kind of alter this. Some people like to spray it with a little bit of misted water. Some people like to let it sit in the shaving cream for a while before you actually put the disc into it. I'm going to go basically straight in here. Now, unfortunately, it's extremely hard to show you guys this part of the technique, but you just want to get it as centered as you can and push it straight down in there. And I also will kind of settle it down into the shaving cream, and that's it. The technique is done from this point. There's nothing else to do about this, so I'll just pull it off and put it aside. And here come the final results 8 hours later, and this is the finished results of the disc. Got a pretty nice spin, definitely a good centered swirl on this guy. You can see the two different colors, the way the colors kind of blend together, but also leaves that yellow underneath because I left the space in between the lines. Again, you can experiment with all kinds of different ways to alter this and figure out how you want to do it to make it look the way you want it to look. That's part of the fun with disc dies. And that's the finished product right there. So thank you very much for watching. If you guys have any questions about this, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Huge shout out to my Patreon support team for their continued support. Everybody who subscribes to the channel, I really appreciate that very much. We are on the road to 15,000 subscribers, and I'm trying to hit that number this calendar year. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. Keep an eye out for future videos and be part of the community here that I've been building for over a decade now. If you want to learn how to do epic glue dies like that one on the left, you can click that video that popped up on your screen just now. And if you want to learn how to do conditioner and shampoo dies, I have a full tutorial for that you can click on the right side of your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you all very soon. Cheers.